The Great Hall stretched out like a small city. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating seats that moved up and down the massive walls. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and many looked like walking rocks or floating gas clouds. This was the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of worlds. Admiral Quan Taiyang sat near the back, almost hidden behind a group of tall, blue-skinned aliens. His human uniform looked plain compared to the shining armor and flowing robes around him. Next to him sat Counselor Yuna, Earth's top diplomat. She wore a simple black suit and carried a small datapad with Earth's requests written on it. The meeting had been going on for hours. The main topic was the Devourers, a scary enemy that had been eating entire star systems at the edge of the galaxy. No one knew what they were exactly, but they turned planets into dust and made stars go dark. Every species was afraid, but they all acted like they had everything under control. The Valdari fleet will position our battle cruisers at the Kepler defense line, announced High Commander Zorvan. He was 12 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like metal. Our ships have protected this galaxy for 2,000 years. These Devourers will learn to fear our power. Many aliens in the hall made sounds of agreement. The Valdari were known as the galaxy's greatest warriors. Their ships were huge and powerful, and they had never lost a major war. Next came the Nexari trade representative, a floating jellyfish-like creature with glowing spots. The Nexari Consortium will provide advanced technology and supplies. Our quantum computers and energy shields are the most advanced in the galaxy. Victory is certain with our support. More sounds of agreement filled the hall. The Nexari controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes and had technology that seemed like magic to younger species. When it was time for smaller species to speak, Admiral Quan stood up slowly. The hall became quieter, but not because anyone was excited to hear him. Most aliens saw humans as cute newcomers who had barely learned to fly between stars. The Human Federation offers our full support to the defense effort, Quan said in a clear voice. We request permission to build deep space construction facilities to help create defensive structures. A sound like laughter rippled through the hall. The Valdari commander's metal face showed what might have been a smile. How thoughtful of the humans. I'm sure your contributions will be noted. Counselor Yuna stepped forward. We have experience with large construction projects. Our engineers are ready to work in the outer systems where conditions are difficult. Of course, said the Nexari representative. Young species must learn by helping. We approve this request. Build whatever small stations you can manage. More laughter sounds came from the crowd. One alien that looked like a walking tree made a comment about human toys that made others laugh even louder. In the human section, Engineer Minho kept his face blank, but his hands were moving quickly on his datapad. He was making calculations that would have shocked the entire hall if they could see them. Next to him, Dr. Nari was running simulations on her computer that involved numbers so large they needed special symbols. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The elder species made grand speeches about their mighty fleets and ancient wisdom. The Valdari talked about their kilometer-long battleships. The Nexari showed holographic displays of their energy weapons that could melt asteroids. Everyone seemed confident that their traditional methods would work against this new threat. Finally, the council reached its decisions. The Valdari would lead the military response with their massive fleet. The Nexari would provide technology and supplies. Smaller species would contribute what they could and stay out of the way. Humans were given permission to build support structures in empty space, far from important worlds. As the Great Hall began to empty, Admiral Quan gathered his small team. They walked toward their ship without talking to other delegations. Most aliens ignored them completely, still chatting about their own important plans. Phase 1 approved, Minho whispered when they were alone in their transport ship. Construction sites are already selected, added Dr. Nari. The raw materials are in position. Quan nodded. How long until the galaxy notices what we're really building? They won't, said Yuna with a small smile. Their sensors can't detect what we're doing at those distances. By the time they realize, it will be too late to stop us. Their ship left the council station and headed toward the outer rim of the galaxy. Behind them, the great species continued their preparations. Valdari battle cruisers moved into defensive positions. Nexari technology ships began upgrading weapons systems. Everyone was getting ready for a normal war against a normal enemy. None of them paid attention to the small human ships heading toward empty space. They didn't notice the massive cargo vessels that had been quietly moving construction materials for months. They certainly didn't suspect that humans had been planning for this moment since before the Devourer threat was even discovered. In the cargo hold of Quan's ship, sealed containers held blueprints for construction projects that would make the galaxy's greatest engineering marvels look like children's toys. The plans were for ships so large they would need their own gravity, weapons so powerful they could change the laws of physics in local space, defense systems that could absorb the energy of exploding stars. But the most important plans weren't for weapons at all. They were for something much more ambitious, something that would change what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had always looked down on them. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, heading for coordinates that existed in the empty void between galaxies, Admiral Quan looked at the star charts one last time. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake the elder species had ever made. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was the only species that understood what they were really fighting. 3 years had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. In that time, the Devourers had moved closer to civilized space, destroying 12 more star systems. The great species of the galaxy continued their preparations, building bigger fleets and stronger weapons using the same methods they had always used. Deep in the void between galaxies, where space was so empty that light from the nearest star took millions of years to arrive, something impossible was taking shape. Fleet Admiral Jiwan stood on the observation deck of the construction ship New Seoul, looking out at a sight that would have driven most beings insane. Floating in the darkness were 7 massive structures, each one so large that they had their own weather systems. They weren't planets, though they were the same size as worlds. They were ships. Status report, Jiwan said to Chief Engineer Soman, who was checking readings on a control panel that stretched across an entire wall. Titan 3 is complete, Soman replied, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what she was describing. All systems are online. The fusion cores are stable and the gravity anchors are holding at 99% efficiency. Jiwan nodded. Each Titan-class vessel was the size of Earth's moon, but they weren't hollow shells. Inside each ship was an entire world, complete with cities, factories, and ecosystems. The engineering challenges had been enormous, but humans had solved them in ways that no other species had ever imagined. Dr. Dayong's report came in this morning, Somin continued. The biological analysis of Devourer remains is complete. She wants to speak with you immediately. Jiwan took a transport pod across the construction zone to the research vessel Horizon. The trip took 20 minutes, even at high speed, because the distances involved were so vast. As he traveled, he could see construction robots the size of buildings working on the hull of Titan 7. The newest ship in the fleet. Dr. Dayong met him in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays, showing complex molecular structures. She was young for such an important position, but her work with alien biology had helped humanity understand threats that other species couldn't even detect. Admiral, we've been wrong about the Devourers, she said without greeting. They're not just destroying worlds randomly. They're harvesting them. She pointed to a display showing the processed remains of a planet the Devourers had consumed. Look at this pattern. They're not eating the matter. They're converting it into something else, something much more complex. This isn't destruction for the sake of destruction. This is preparation. Preparation for what? Jiwan asked. We don't know yet, but the energy patterns suggest they're building something huge, something that needs the processed matter of entire civilizations to function. Jiwan studied the data. If the Devourers were builders rather than simple destroyers, it changed everything about how the war needed to be fought. Have you shared this with the Galactic Council? We tried, Dayong said with a bitter laugh. They told us to focus on our construction projects and leave the real science to species that understand it better. This was exactly the kind of attitude that had driven humanity to build their secret fleet. The elder species were so sure of their own superiority that they couldn't imagine a younger species discovering something important. Jiwan's communication device buzzed. Admiral, we're receiving urgent messages from the Council, came the voice of Captain Hyun from the flagship Taeguk. The Devourers have broken through the outer defensive lines. The Valdari lost 30 battlecruisers in 6 hours. Understood. Prepare all vessels for final checks. We may need to move sooner than planned. Jiwan took another transport to the Taeguk, the largest of the 7 Titan ships. As he traveled, He thought about the incredible journey that had brought humanity to this point. While other species had focused on making better versions of existing technology, humans had started from scratch, developing entirely new approaches to space travel, energy generation, and construction. The key breakthrough had been learning to manipulate dark matter and dark energy, the invisible forces that made up most of the universe. While other species built ships from metal and powered them with fusion reactors, human ships were built from compressed space-time itself and powered by controlled black holes. Captain Hyun met him at the docking bay of the Taeguk. The ship was so large that it had its own transportation system, with high-speed trains connecting different sections. The bridge was located at the center of the vessel, protected by layers of armor that could absorb the energy of exploding stars. "Status of all vessels?" Jiwan asked as they rode the train toward the command center. "All 7 Titans are operational," Hyun reported. "The manufacturing facilities have produced a support fleet of 200 escort vessels. Each escort ship is larger than the Valdari flagship, but we're calling them escorts to avoid scaring ourselves." The bridge of the Taeguk was unlike anything that existed elsewhere in the galaxy. Instead of screens and buttons, the walls were made of programmable matter that could display information or become solid controls as needed. The command crew sat in chairs that connected directly to the ship's AI systems, allowing them to think their orders instead of speaking them. "Admiral," called out Weapons Coordinator Gina from her station, "we're receiving the formal request from the Galactic Council. They're asking all member species to contribute whatever resources they can spare to help with evacuation efforts." "Send our standard response," Jiwan ordered. "Tell them we'll handle it." "Sir, they're asking for clarification on what handle it means. Tell them they'll understand soon enough." Around the bridge, the command crew was making final preparations. Commander Jae-hyun was coordinating with the other Titan ships. Lieutenant Min-hee was reviewing target data that the Galactic Council had never seen. Everything was ready. "Admiral," Hyun said quietly, "once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again." Ji-won looked out at the 6 other massive ships floating in the darkness. Each one represented the work of millions of humans over 3 years of secret construction. Each one contained weapons that could crack planets and defenses that could withstand the collapse of stars. They were the most powerful military force ever created, built by a species that the galaxy considered too young and weak to matter. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Begin Phase 2. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do." Across the 7 Titan ships, massive engines that manipulated space-time itself began to warm up. For the first time in 3 years, the vessels prepared to move, heading toward a confrontation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The first sign that something had changed came when every human merchant ship in the galaxy suddenly broadcast the same message at exactly the same time. The message was simple and polite. All human citizens should return to their home systems immediately for family reasons. Within 3 days, humans began disappearing from space stations, alien worlds, and mixed crews throughout the galaxy. They left their jobs, their businesses, even their alien friends, always with the same explanation about urgent family matters. Most aliens found it amusing. Another example of how humans were controlled by emotions rather than logic. At the Galactic Council emergency session, Ambassador Yoonji delivered humanity's final diplomatic message. She stood at the small human podium looking tiny compared to the massive alien delegates around her. "The Human Federation is withdrawing from the Galactic Confederation, effective immediately," she announced to the shocked assembly. "We will no longer participate in joint military operations or resource-sharing agreements." High Commander Zorvan of the Valdari stood up, his metal armor clanking. "This is unacceptable. You cannot abandon the galaxy in its hour of greatest need." "We're not abandoning anyone," Yoonji replied calmly. "We're withdrawing to prevent collateral damage during our own military operations." The Nexari trade representative's glowing spots flickered with confusion. "What military operations? Humans have 12 colony worlds and a handful of cargo ships. What possible military operations could you conduct?" Yoonji smiled for the first time during the meeting. "You'll see." She left the council chamber without another word, leaving behind thousands of confused and angry aliens. The Valdari demanded that human ships be stopped and searched. The Nexari wanted trade sanctions. Other species called for humans to be declared outlaws. None of them noticed the gravitational anomalies, that had begun appearing on long-range sensors throughout the galaxy. Admiral Jinwoo commanded the lead vessel, Aegis, as humanity's true fleet moved through space toward the Devourer front lines. The 7 Titan ships traveled in formation, their massive bulk creating gravitational effects that could be felt across entire star systems. "All vessels report ready," announced Fleet Commander Cheung from her position at the tactical station. "Escort fleet is in position. Long-range sensors are detecting enemy activity in the Kepler Nebula." "Any response from Galactic Confederation forces?" Jinwoo asked. "They're confused, sir," replied Communications Officer So Young. "Their sensor networks are overloading. They can't figure out what they're detecting." This was not surprising. The Titan ships registered on sensors as objects with the mass of brown dwarf stars, but they were moving at speeds that should have been impossible for anything so large. The physics involved hurt alien brains to think about. On the Nexari science vessel Quantum Dawn, Director So Young stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. "This must be a malfunction," she muttered, running the scans again and again. "These readings suggest 7 objects, each with the mass of a small star, moving in perfect formation at near light speed." Her assistant, a young Nexari named Vorthan, checked the backup sensors. "Director, the readings are confirmed across all sensor networks. Whatever these objects are, they're real." "Impossible. Nothing that massive can move that fast. The energy requirements alone would—" She stopped speaking as the true implications hit her. "Contact the Valdari fleet immediately. Tell them to pull back to minimum safe distance," but the Valdari fleet was already seeing the impossible objects on their own sensors. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of the Taeguk as the human fleet approached the battle zone where Galactic Confederation forces were fighting a losing battle against the Devourers. Valdari battle cruisers that had seemed mighty just days before now looked like toys floating next to the massive human vessels. "Open communications to all Confederation forces," Jinwoo ordered. So Young's fingers moved across her control panel. "Channel open, Admiral. Attention all Confederation vessels. This is Admiral Jinwoo of the Human Defense Fleet. You are entering a human military operation zone. For your own safety, withdraw to minimum safe distance of 50 light years. We'll take it from here." The response was immediate chaos. Valdari commanders demanded to know what was happening. Nexari science ships frantically scanned the human vessels, trying to understand what they were seeing. Smaller species just fled as fast as their ships could move. High Commander Zorvan's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with shock and anger. "This is impossible. Humans don't have the technology to build ships of this size." "What are these vessels?" "These are Titan-class defensive platforms," Jinwoo replied calmly. "We built them during the 3 years you spent arguing about defense strategies." "Built them where?" "Our sensors monitor all human space. We built them in empty space between galaxies, using construction techniques you don't understand yet." Director So Young's science ship had managed to get close enough to scan one of the human escort vessels. Her readings made no sense according to any known physics. "Admiral Jinwoo," she transmitted, "my sensors indicate that your escort ships are constructed from compressed dark matter and powered by controlled singularities. This technology is theoretically impossible. Your theory needs updating," came the calm reply. As the Galactic Confederation forces retreated to safe distance, they got their first good look at humanity's secret fleet. The 7 Titan ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Their hulls seemed to be made of solidified space itself, dark and smooth with no visible weapons or engines. They moved through space as if the normal laws of physics didn't apply to them. The escort vessels surrounding each Titan were more conventional in appearance, but their size was staggering. The smallest human escort ship was larger than the pride of the Valdari battle fleet. "How?" transmitted one young Valdari officer, his voice filled with awe. "How did you build all this in secret?" Lieutenant Minnie, monitoring communications from the Taeguk, replied with quiet pride. "While you were perfecting weapons that kill, we were inventing tools that create. While you were arguing about who was in charge, we were solving problems no one else thought to work on. While you were preparing for the last war, we were building for the war that was actually coming." The human fleet moved past the retreating Confederation forces toward the Devourer swarm. As they approached the enemy, more impossible things became visible. The Titan ships began to change shape, their hulls flowing like liquid while maintaining their massive size. Weapon systems emerged from their surfaces, but they looked nothing like conventional armaments. Final warning to all Confederation vessels. Admiral Jinwoo transmitted. What you're about to witness will be unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Please maintain safe distance for your own protection. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity prepared to face an enemy that had destroyed every force sent against it. For the first time since the Devourer threat began, the elder species realized they might not be the most powerful beings in the galaxy after all. The Kepler Nebula had once been a beautiful region of space, filled with young stars and colorful gas clouds. Now it was a graveyard. 3 star systems had been completely consumed by the Devourers, leaving behind only empty space and strange energy signatures that hurt to look at. The Devourer swarm was massive beyond description. Hundreds of creatures, each the size of a continent, moved through space like living ships. Their bodies were part machine and part biology, covered in armor that looked like it was grown rather than built. They had weapons that could make stars explode and defensive systems that had never been defeated. Admiral Johann watched from the bridge of the Eternal Watch as his fleet approached the enemy. The 7 Titan ships moved in perfect formation, their escort vessels spread out in a protective screen. Everything was calm and quiet, which seemed strange considering they were about to fight the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever known. Enemy contact in 60 seconds. Reported Weapons Coordinator Gina, Audio. Ships report ready for combat. Remember, Johann said to his command crew, we're not just fighting for humanity today. We're fighting for every living being in the galaxy, including the ones who think we're too weak to help them. The Devourers detected the approaching human fleet and responded exactly as they had to every other attack. Massive energy beams, each one powerful enough to destroy a planet, lanced out toward the human ships. The weapons that had shattered every galactic defense force fired with enough energy to sterilize entire solar systems. The human ships didn't even slow down. The energy beam struck the Titan vessels and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that worked by changing the basic rules of physics in local space. The power that could have destroyed worlds was channeled into the ship's own energy systems, making them stronger rather than damaging them. Direct hits on all vessels, reported Lieutenant Seojun from his sensor station. No damage, energy absorption at 112% efficiency. This meant the human ships were actually gaining power from being attacked, something that should have been impossible but was happening anyway. The Devourers responded by increasing their assault. More energy beams fired, accompanied by weapons that attacked matter at the atomic level and others that tried to tear holes in space-time itself. The attack was so intense that it would have reduced any normal fleet to particles in seconds. The human ships continued their approach without even shaking. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Gina announced. All systems charged and ready. Fire when ready, Johann ordered. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for thousands of years. The human ships opened fire with weapons that didn't just destroy matter, but erased it from existence across multiple dimensions. Beams of pure nothingness reached out and touched the Devourer creatures, and wherever they hit, the enemy simply ceased to exist. But the most shocking weapons were the gravity lances. These were beams that changed the weight of space itself, creating zones where the normal laws of physics stopped working. When a gravity lance hit a Devourer, the creature would be crushed by its own mass or stretched apart by forces that pulled in different directions. The battle became something beyond normal understanding. The humans were fighting with weapons that treated reality as a suggestion, rather than a rule. Space-time itself became a battlefield as the two forces clashed with technologies that most species couldn't even imagine. Captain Do-Yun led a boarding party onto one of the largest Devourer creatures. His team used personal armor that let them phase through solid matter and weapons that could cut through any known material. Inside the creature, they found something that made them stop and stare in horror. Admiral, Do-Yun transmitted back to the fleet, you need to see this. The images he sent showed a massive construction project inside the Devourer creature. It wasn't just a ship or a weapon. It was part of something much larger, a device that seemed to stretch across multiple dimensions. The processed matter from destroyed worlds was being used to build components for this impossible machine. Xenobiologist Seojun analyzed the images from his lab on the research ship Discovery. Admiral, this isn't an invasion, he reported with fear in his voice. The Devourers are building a gateway, They're trying to open a passage for something to come through from outside our galaxy, something that exists in more than 3 dimensions. Johann felt his blood turn cold. How close are they to completing it? Based on these patterns, very close. Maybe hours, not days. The situation had suddenly become much worse. If the Devourers completed their gateway, they would bring through entities that existed outside normal spacetime. These beings would be impossible to fight using any conventional means. Options? Johann asked his command staff. Engineer Mia looked up from her calculations with a grim expression. We could link all 7 ships' reality manipulation systems and create a localized field where the gateway can't exist. But the energy cost would be enormous. We'd have to burn through our entire exotic matter reserves. What about the ships? Johann asked. They'd survive, but they wouldn't be the same. We'd lose most of our advanced capabilities. The weapons that can rewrite physics, the defenses that absorb star-level energy, all of it would be gone. Commander Jaehyun studied the tactical situation. Admiral, if we don't do this, the entire galaxy falls to entities we can't even understand. If we do it, we save everyone but lose most of our power. Johann thought about the Galactic Council meeting 3 years ago, when the elder species had laughed at humanity's offer to help. He thought about all the times humans had been dismissed as too young and weak to matter. None of that seemed important now. Signal all ships, he ordered. Prepare for reality modification protocol. We're going to save a galaxy that never believed in us. The 7 Titan ships moved into a perfect circle around the Devourer gateway. Their hulls began to glow as they prepared to link their most powerful systems together. Space itself started to change as the human ships reached out and grabbed the fundamental forces of the universe. What happened next was visible across the entire galaxy. A sphere of pure energy formed around the Devourer gateway, and inside that sphere the laws of physics were rewritten. The gateway device, which had been built using the matter of entire worlds, simply ceased to be possible in that region of space. The explosion could be seen from 50 galaxies away. When it ended, the Devourer swarm was gone, their gateway torn apart at the quantum level. The human fleet remained, but the Titan ships had changed. They were still massive and powerful, but the weapons that could rewrite reality were silent. The galaxy was safe, but humanity had paid a price that only they understood. They had given up their greatest weapons to protect people who had never shown them respect. As the energy faded and space returned to normal, Admiral Johann received communications from across the galaxy. Every species, every government, every world that had survived was trying to understand what had just happened. He answered them all with the same simple message. The threat is ended. The galaxy is safe. 6 months after the battle at Kepler Nebula, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Devourer threat was gone, but the questions remained. How had humanity built such incredible ships in secret? Where had they learned to manipulate the laws of physics themselves? And most importantly, what did they want now that they had proven they were the most powerful force in the galaxy? Admiral Hanna stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, looking out at a sight that filled her with pride. The 7 Titan ships had spread across the galaxy, but they were no longer the reality-bending weapons of war they had once been. Instead, they had become something new and wonderful. Construction report, she requested from Engineer Mia. The Kepler system is ready for colonization, Mia replied, checking her displays. 3 new worlds complete with breathable atmospheres and stable ecosystems. The refugees from the Devourer attacks can begin moving in next week. This was what the Titan ships were doing now. Instead of carrying weapons that could crack planets, they were creating new planets for people who had lost their homes. The same technology that had built moon-sized warships was now building actual worlds, complete with everything needed to support life. It had taken the galaxy time to understand that humanity didn't want to rule anyone. When the Galactic Council formally requested that humans take leadership of the new government, humanity's answer had surprised everyone again. Councillor Nari delivered the human response to a packed council chamber. The Human Federation declines any official authority over galactic affairs. However, we offer to serve as guardians against threats that conventional forces cannot handle. The great species of the galaxy had been humbled by recent events. High Commander Zorvan, his metal face showing something that might have been shame, stood to address the human delegation. We owe you an apology that can never be sufficient. We thought you were weak when you were actually stronger than all of us combined. We laughed at your offers to help when you were the only ones capable of saving us. You're not the first people to underestimate humans, Nari replied gently, and you probably won't be the last. We don't hold grudges about it. Director Soyoung of the Nexari had spent months studying the human technology, trying to understand how they had achieved the impossible. Your ships violated every known law of physics, she said. How did you learn to manipulate dark matter and dark energy? How did you build reactors powered by controlled black holes? We started from scratch, Engineer Mia explained. While other species perfected existing ideas, we asked different questions. Instead of, how can we make this better? We asked, what if we tried something completely different? The human approach to science had been to ignore what everyone else said was impossible and try it anyway. While other species built bigger versions of old technology, humans had developed entirely new ways of thinking about space, time, energy, and matter. But the most important change was in how humans saw their role in the galaxy. Director Yuna announced the formation of the Terra Vigil, a new organization dedicated to watching for threats that might come from outside the galaxy. We will maintain monitoring stations at the edge of galactic space, she explained to the Council. Our people will watch for signs of extragalactic threats and maintain the technology needed to respond to them. The Terra Vigil was not a military organization in the traditional sense. It was more like a combination of scientists, explorers, and guardians. They would share some of their knowledge with other species, enough to advance galactic civilization by centuries, but they would keep the most dangerous secrets to themselves. Captain Salmon commanded the newly renamed Prometheus as it patrolled the rim of the galaxy. Her ship was no longer the devastating weapon it had once been, but it was still impressive beyond anything else in space. It carried sensors that could detect threats across multiple dimensions and weapons that could respond to dangers that normal technology couldn't even see. Any unusual activity? She asked her sensor officer during the daily briefing. Negative, Captain. All monitoring stations report normal readings. No signs of extragalactic intrusion. This was good news, but everyone knew it wouldn't last forever. The universe was vast and full of dangers that no one had imagined yet. When those threats appeared, humanity would be ready. The human colonies throughout the galaxy had been transformed into early warning stations. People who had once been merchants, engineers, and farmers were now trained in technologies that seemed like magic to other species. They lived normal lives, but they also watched the stars for signs of trouble. Admiral Kwan, now elderly but still sharp, walked through the observation deck of his ship with his granddaughter, Lieutenant Min-hee. She was young, part of the new generation of humans who had grown up knowing they were the secret guardians of the galaxy. Grandfather, she asked as they looked out at the stars, why did we choose to protect people who had dismissed us as unimportant? Kwan smiled at the question. It was the same one he had been asking himself for months. Because when you have the power to help, the only choice is whether you're brave enough to use it. But they laughed at us. They thought we were weak. They were wrong about our strength, but they weren't wrong about our character. We could have conquered the galaxy after the battle. We could have forced them to serve us or fear us. Instead, we chose to serve them. Min-hee thought about this for a while, watching the stars turn slowly as their ship moved through space. Do you think they'll ever truly understand what we gave up to save them? Some will, some won't. But that's not why we did it. Around them, the ship continued its patrol of the galactic rim. In the distance, the 7 Guardian vessels could be seen spread across the edge of known space, no longer weapons of war, but beacons of hope. They stood watch against the darkness between galaxies, ready to face whatever impossible threats might emerge from the void. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about underestimating others, especially those who seemed weak or unimportant. Humanity had proven that true strength wasn't measured by the ability to destroy, but by the wisdom to protect. And in the quiet moments between the stars, when the galaxy slept peacefully in the knowledge that someone was watching over them, the humans continued their vigil. They had built the most powerful weapons ever imagined, used them to save everyone, and then transformed them into tools of creation and protection. It was, Admiral Kwan thought as he watched the stars, exactly what humans should do with power. Not conquer, not dominate, but guard and protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy was safe, and humanity had found its true purpose among the stars.